In these news articles, there's an awful lot of news. Toyota is going to manufacture humanoid robots, and they claim that you can teach these robots to do things in just a few hours, because after you show them an example, it synthesizes more data to train on. So that's pretty interesting. I don't think they're for sale yet. It'll be interesting to see how true that really is, how well that actually works. Microsoft has announced a bunch of AI. They built Copilot into Windows. And they say this is the biggest change they've ever made. It's an AI that runs locally on your Windows machine and tries to help you. And they say it is very useful and not intrusive. It's the update to Clippy. And what happens is it doesn't pop up and irritate you by offering help when you don't want it. It notices when you do a copy operation, to copy and paste anything. And when you copy something, it says, would you like me to process that with AI to help you? And so it will help you understand long documents and emails. It will read, you can give it a picture of an item of food, and it will figure out what it is and show you the recipe for it, which is almost magical. And there's a series of related tools all going to come as updates to Windows 11. Here's this person's 5 most useful ones. Bing Chat, personalized answers. It will remember your previous conversations to give you personalized answers. So if you tell it you're allergic to something, it will not put it in the recipes it gives you. And it has an image creator built in. It has a shopping assistant, which they say is actually useful. My first thought is I couldn't care less about anybody trying to sell me stuff, but apparently it does help you by asking you and offering you things and guiding you to find the right thing you're trying to buy. And Paint. I thought this was ridiculous when they said they're putting AI in Paint, but apparently it works. It seems kind of nuts to me. I mean, if you wanted Photoshop, you'd get Photoshop. But anyway, Paint now has smart background removal to separate foreground from background and other AI features that they say actually work. So I don't know. And then Copilot in Word, which I guess just helps you improve your writing, and built into Word where you'd want it. So people say it's pretty good. And now they're all thinking, I think they named them all after GitHub Copilot, which I really would like to try, although I think it's not available for free. But that would probably be what I care about the most, because you're writing code like in Python, and it will use AI to help you. I'm already frequently going to Bard to ask it, write Python for this, write Python for that, so I don't bother reading the documentation. And it might as well just be integrated into the development platform, like Visual Studio. Might be a reason to use Visual Studio. All right, anyway, this was pretty interesting. These guys, for the first time, have figured out how to 3D print at the nanoscale, and it is pretty cool. What they do is they make one of these aerogels. Aerogels are these very porous things that look like foam, and they can absorb an incredible amount of water, like many times their own weight in water. So they fill this thing with this aerogel with water, then they burrow out pits in it with lasers, then they fill it in with metal, then they dissolve away the rest of it. So you let these little tiny slivers of metal, and what they discovered is they're getting nanoscale pieces of metal, and originally they thought they'd be useless because, as you can see, they're just sort of random distorted things with holes and pits. This process doesn't make them smooth and even, but they found out at a large scale, if you make metal that is disorganized at the atomic scale, it's very weak and falls apart. But at the nanoscale, this makes it stronger, because a high degree of order at the nanoscale leaves cleavage lines, where it will have the atoms all lined up and it'll split. The top part will split from the bottom, and this breaks up the cleavage lines. So disordered metals at the nanoscale are actually stronger. So these things are probably going to be useful, which they said was a surprise. And this one I found very interesting. For people who speak more than one language, psychologists said, I wonder what would happen if you behave the same when you were presented questions in your second language as opposed to your first language. And he said he first did this experiment 15 years ago, and the effect was so large he thought something must be wrong. It is very different how people think in their primary language and in their secondary language. For example, when you give them the trolley problem, the famous one where you see a trolley that's running down the track and it's going to kill people, but you could push a fat person off the ledge to stop the trolley. In their native language, people will refuse to do that, but in their second language, they will agree to do that. And this, I think, They don't express it this way, but my impression from the paper is your native language has a rich emotional connection to your childhood experiences and your values, and you respond emotionally to things in your native language, but you respond logically to things in your second language because it's not connected to any of those childhood experiences or anything. So they've shown that people are much more logical and objective and analytical in their second language. It affects moral reasoning, it affects many other kinds of reasoning. It affects their ability to remember things. You know, this makes actually a lot of sense now that you think about it, that the way you process your second language in your brain probably uses different parts of the brain. So anyway, it sounds very interesting, and probably means there are some nice psychological tricks you could use involving a second language to improve your thinking. Now let's see if there's any way to get this. Oh, that's right. CNBC seems to be the stupid site that thinks I'm blocking ads when I'm not. It's be nice if some of these guys would finally fix their broken software. But anyway, all right. Cisco bought Splunk for $28 billion in cash. I was very surprised to hear this. I know Splunk is rich. Splunk is the 4th highest pay you can get in America. At least it was within the last couple of years. And now they've sold to Cisco. I teach Splunk. I'm just now developing Splunk SOAR classes. I wonder what's going to happen to Splunk. It will be very interesting to see if Cisco permits Splunk to continue being the product it is, or if they ruin it. I do not know Cisco's history with acquisitions. I know Microsoft, Yahoo is the worst. Yahoo buys things and just lets them die. They did this over and over. Microsoft buys things and then they ruin them typically. They build them into their enterprise ecosystem and make it clumsy and hard to use them and make them not worth much. And I don't know what Cisco's going to do to Splunk. It's very important. Anyway, I'm surprised they did that. And we'll see how that works out. And this is, there's no way to get rid of this even when you go to the next tab? They just fell out my browser completely? All right. Oh, that's also CNBC, that's why. All right, this one here I found, and unfortunately, I know it's true. So a teacher gave up teaching and just worked at Costco, and now she makes a bunch more money and is much happier. I must say, I've been for the last, I started having health problems like 10 years ago, so I started trying to train another teacher to take over my classes. I've made 4 or 5 friends and trained them, and all of them have given up teaching. Teaching is a terrible job. It's getting worse and worse. They treat you like dirt. They cut your pay. They fire you.
Teaching in public sector is bad. Private sector might be.
Private corporate teaching. I'm doing more of that in contract.
That's bad as well.
No, it's very good. Yeah. That's why. I mean, and if you go to in fact, in general, being at an academic institution is just a form of self-abuse. And when you go in the corporate world, you get treated much better. I mean, here you just get treated like trash. They fire you. They jerk you around. They have stupid administration that blocks everything. They stab you in the back, they promise you and lie to you. And if you just go to a corporation, you get treated well, you get paid. So it's amazing how many people. Anyway, it is an interesting fact, and I know it's absolutely true from my circle of friends. All my friends who are teachers have all quit teaching or they're planning to, because it just is not a valid career path anymore. So, you know, this may be the end of colleges. I think colleges are worth a lot less than they used to be. And I think they cost a lot more and they're worth a lot less. And I think the future is going to have a lot less college degrees and a lot more industry certificates that you get by going online and taking a Google class or something. I think this formal system of degrees and requirements from the state and all this jazz, all these burdensome administrative requirements to get financial aid and stuff, I think all that stuff is going to diminish in importance. It's sort of a bunch of useless bureaucracy that gets in the way of actually learning stuff you need to know. Anyway, this, I was surprised. I didn't know this. Apparently the Indians in California, I mean the Indians from India, discriminate by caste. This guy is one of the untouchable caste, and he says in California they're discriminated against, and he wants to add them a protected class in California to stop discrimination. And they made a hunger strike to try to pressure Newsom into doing this. This is interesting. This is a race discrimination issue that I thought wouldn't happen in America. I understand it's a big problem in India, but I didn't know it was happening here, but apparently it is happening in California. And that's an interesting thing to know about. So I certainly don't think that should be happening.
What's the discrimination about?
they have a lower class, the untouchables, the dodge-it, and they just treat them like dirt. They can never get promotions, they get the license. What's that?
In California?
In California. I mean, I know they do it in India.
But who treats them like?
I guess the other Indians here.
Oh.
I think it's the other Indians treating them badly here.
In Cisco.
Yeah, it's Cisco and all the tech companies, which are all full of Indians. I think they continue to carry their old traditions of discrimination into America.
Oh, okay.
And so he wants to add them to the list of protected classes, so it's illegal to discriminate against them here.
I mean, I thought discrimination was illegal.
No,
Yes, I don't know.
no, this is real important. Discrimination was only made illegal by a certain law, and that law listed only certain categories of people. And if you're not a protected class, it's not illegal to discriminate against you. That's why for a long time, women were not included. For a long time, gay people were not included. There's a whole bunch of categories. People have to fight to be added to the list. And until you're added to the list, you can't sue for discrimination unless you're in a protected class.
A couple of years ago, a bunch of engineering group, there's an engineering group in Cisco. The manager is like upper class.
Brahmin probably, yeah.
And the employees are lower, one of the employees are lower class.
Yeah.
And he was suing the company for discrimination by the manager.
Yeah, Cisco, I think also, I know Cisco got sued by women for discrimination against women, and I think also by older workers for discrimination against older people. So there's a lot of different forms of it, and only certain parts of it are illegal, and they have to fight for it. Anyway, that's enough of the news.